Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Amanda Nichols from CCIQ and I'll be your facilitator for today. Joining us today is Anthony Fenson, the Vice President from the Queensland Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Diana Georgieva, our International Trade Manager here at CCIQ. Japan is currently Australia's second largest investor and Queensland's second largest export market. Launched in 2015, JAEPA provides improved trade arrangements for a range of industries. Supported by Austrade, today's webinar will provide specific training on how to access JAEPA, along with an overview of various sector opportunities in the Japanese market. But before we start, if you want to ask Diana or Anthony a question, you can do so at any time using the chat box that appears on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. So I'll now hand over to Anthony and he'll start off today's presentation.
Thanks, all. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining in today. And basically, today's schedule will be fairly succinct. First of all, I'll give a brief overview for those who perhaps are unfamiliar with Japan, where it's been recently, and I guess the opportunities for Queensland businesses in Japan. And then I'll hand over to Diana, who will do then the JAEPA training, exactly how to access the benefits of JAEPA and how to do the paperwork and make sure your business gets those trade benefits. After that, we'll do a quick Q&A. So please keep those questions ready for us before we wind up at 1 o'clock. So thank you again. Now, kicking off with Japan, it's been, I guess, the big story hasn't been Japan recently, but Japan is still there as the world's #3 economy. So for those who haven't been paying attention, Japan is still a very big market for your business. Nominal GDP is approximately $5 trillion US versus Australia's 1.2 trillion. So about 5 times the size of Australia's economy. So it's a big market. And Japan is ranked 3rd for global corporate headquarters. 52 of the Fortune Global 500 companies are based in Japan. So a big market for global corporates. Now, Japan's economy is growing. They've had 5 straight years of growth. The second longest post-war expansion, I believe. So it's been a great run of growth for the Japanese economy. The IMF is saying that GDP should expand by about 1.5% this year. And they're looking at around the same level for next year. So a good run for the economy. The jobless rates dropped to the lowest level in 2 decades. So plenty of jobs for everyone. And the stock market is surging. The Nikkei benchmark average is up to about 22-year high. So the Japanese stocks are surging. There's plenty of jobs around. Everyone is getting happier and plenty of money for businesses. Now, this graph looks at GDP for 5 straight years, and you'll see the uptick there since the 3/11 disaster and obviously the GFC. Abenomics has basically got the economy moving again. Up for 5 straight years, looking at extending that streak to 6 years next year and beyond. So obviously households are spending more money and things are looking much better for the Japanese economy, after that disaster in GFC, which hit things a few years ago. Now, looking at Japan overall, this is from 2013, but everyone thinks about Tokyo, and Tokyo is the world's biggest city, 30 million population, a lot of wealth concentrated in that Tokyo area. But if you look at around the regions too, there's a lot of money in the regions also. So you've got areas up north like Hokkaido where a lot of Aussies go skiing. The Hokkaido and Tohoku region, about the same size economy as Sweden. You look down to Kansai in the west, and that's areas like Osaka, Kyoto, etc. That's about the same size as Switzerland in their economy. And further south in Kyushu, about the same size as the Austrian economy. So even if you don't want to go straight to the big smoke in Tokyo, the big Mikan as it's known, you can go to the regions, and these are massive markets. If you're a small business, that's still plenty of growth there for you. Now, Japan's got a lot of wealthy people too. Mr. Son, CEO of SoftBank, currently Japan's richest man. I read somewhere he's got about $20 billion worth of personal wealth, so he's plenty of wealth there, but here's just one example. Japan's got the second highest number of high net wealth individuals behind the US as of 2015. So a lot of rich people. If you're doing financial services, obviously premium prestige products, that's a big market for you to target, whether it's luxury goods, etc., etc. A lot of rich people in Japan to do business with. And for Queensland, Japan is still a #2 export market, was #1 for a number of years, just recently now #2. And as you can see, big uptick in exports last year. up about 26%, now worth more than $10 billion in merchandise exports, which is obviously a lot of coal and gas and beef, etc. So great for those industries. And currently around a quarter of Australia's total exports are going to Japan. So it's a big trading partner for us and getting bigger, which is fantastic. Now, these brands here you may recognise. These are some of the exporters to Japan from Queensland. Brands like Sirame Wines, Capilano Honey. You've got things like beef exporters. You've got juice. You've got ice cream. You've got a whole range of things happening going from Queensland to Japan. So those are some of the brands that have made inroads in the Japanese market. And it goes both ways. So Japan, recently we've seen the Japanese visitors surge back to Queensland thanks to Qantas putting in direct flights back from Brisbane to Narita in Tokyo. You've got a big jump in Japanese tourists last year. Currently our third largest international visitor market, about 200,000 visitors last year. And again, a lot of Aussies going to Japan as well. So whether we're going skiing in Niseko or going checking out the temples in Kyoto, a lot of Aussies going there now as well. So a great two-way tourism business. Now, Japan is going global. So this is a slide from the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but you'll see there the graph and a big jump in M&A from Japanese companies. They recognise they need to grow, and they need to grow offshore. So they are now spending money in those overseas acquisitions, which is going to be great for your business if you're looking for an investment partner. And you've seen it with Australia, with Japan Post spending $6 billion record investment to buy Toll a year or two ago in Australia. So that was a massive investment, $6 billion. But there's been investments in a range of areas, whether it's dairy, beverages, financial services, the whole range of sectors. Obviously, traditionally the resource sector, but and even property now as well. Japanese companies are looking at Australia as being an attractive market. We're growing, obviously, our population is growing, the economy is growing, and they see us as a great destination. So for your business, that could mean a great partner. And there's the stats. Japan currently number 2 investor in Australia. This is the stock of FDI, foreign direct investment, and that's increased by a massive 78% over the last 6 years. Now overtook the UK, so now second only to the US in terms of total stock of FDI in Australia, and that's all those investments like Japan Post buying Toll, like the resource sector investments, whether it's property with Sexby House, Daiwa House, etc., Daikyo, whether it's Uniqlo investing in retail outlets here, whether it's financial services, whether it's insurance, etc., etc., etc. Japanese companies are coming into Australia, and you see that in the investment stock. But it doesn't all go one way. So Queensland companies are also going to Japan. And from Queensland, Domino's has been the big one. Domino's franchise in Japan, I believe, is now the second largest pizza franchise in Japan. And that's running from Brisbane. So a great success story for Brisbane, for Queensland in Japan. Then you've got smaller companies like Cutting Edge, which just recently opened an office in Tokyo. And ProScribe from Noosa, which is doing also an office in Tokyo. They're doing medical writing services, etc. So you're seeing big companies and also smaller companies which are venturing into Japan. Obviously, we've got our big exporters who are well established in Japan, but also now your small companies which are also looking at Japan as being an attractive market to expand into. And if you're walking around Queensland, obviously you'll see these brands, whether you're in the Queen Street Mall or somewhere else in Queensland. You've seen Uniqlo now arrive in Queensland, Gold Coast and Brisbane. You've seen the Daiso, $2 shops around the place. They're getting very big as well. And Moss Burger, which Japan's number 2 hamburger chain behind McDonald's. They ventured first to Queensland, so that's a great tick for Queensland to get these kind of businesses here. And more recently, we've seen companies like Sexby House come here, Daikyo's come back, Daiwa House. You've seen SoftBank doing robotics with QUT. You've seen a whole bunch of Japanese companies from different sectors come back to Queensland. You've seen ongoing investments by their big trading houses, whether it's Mitsubishi, Marubeni, Mitsui, etc., doing investments in the resource sector and energy, now gas exports from Gladstone. So a lot of Japanese businesses coming here as well. Now, this is from Trade Investment Queensland, and I had a look at their website, and they give the current opportunities for Queensland companies in Japan. There's a whole bunch of things, but they've got 3 things here. in particular, which are energy and resources. So obviously gas is a big thing from Queensland, but things like renewable energy as well. So Japan's got a renewable energy target, trying to get more renewables in their energy mix, up 24% to 24% by 2030. And then you've got things like food and agribusiness. Japan imports 60% of their food. So if you're a food exporter, that's a big market for you to tap into. I think I read somewhere it's Australia's second largest export market in food. So whether you're selling mangoes or macadamia nuts or whatever it is, beef, Japanese love our food. They like our clean and green food, and organic food as well is getting bigger. And then you've got things like science and technology, innovation, etc. So whether it's students, Japan's investing more in sending students overseas to our universities and schools for English training, etc., childcare, aged care, and so on. And things like fuel cells, hydrogen, robotics, aged care, all these different things Japan is investing in, and they're all opportunities for your business. Now, looking from now and mid-term and long-term, TIQ sees right now opportunities, obviously, in traditional areas like whether it's coal and gas, beef, dairy, etc., etc. Mid-term, we're looking at things like advanced healthcare, renewables, robotics, and longer-term, you've got things like advanced healthcare and smart tech, whether it's smart homes, smart vehicles, etc. Japan's made a big push into driverless cars and buses, etc. So that's getting bigger and bigger. All these areas of high tech Japan is into, so you've got a great market there if you are into those sectors. Now, JETRO, if you are looking at Japan seriously, I recommend a chat to JETRO, Japan External Trade Organization, and they nominate 5 sectors as being important, being smart agriculture, virtual reality, augmented reality, renewable energy, electricity, and life sciences, ICT. And if you are looking at going to Japan, obviously JETRO will support you. Have a look at their website. They will help you with office space, things like that, to try and help your business get set up in Japan. So recommend talking to them. And other things, Japan also looking ahead to sporting events. So if you're in the sporting business or tourism, hotels, etc., rugby fans will know about the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan, which is coming up not far away now. And the big one, the 2020 Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics, which is massive investment by Japan, infrastructure, etc. And that's going to be a big boost to all those sectors which are related to that. Now, today's subject, obviously, JAEPA, so falling trade barriers, and even bigger on the horizon is the TPP. Now, the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, has been going on for a few years now. We got close to a deal recently. They are saying that we're looking now to hopefully a deal next year, touch wood. If that happens, things like wine exports will be automatically slashed, I read, basically to zero overnight if TPP comes in. So that's great for our wine exporters, etc. So fingers crossed the TPP goes in as well and we get those benefits. Japan is also cutting corporate taxes, which is obviously happening in the US, etc. So that's a great thing for your business if you're over there. And they are deregulating things like healthcare, energy, and there's various national strategic special zones in different regions for different things like biotech, etc., etc. And if you are going to Queensland, going to Japan from Queensland, speak to these guys, TIQ. Takadachi is the Queensland Trade Commissioner to Japan, been there for a number of years, one of the most highly regarded trade commissioners for Queensland overseas, knows everyone, business background, so TAC has got all the contacts in business and government, and having that government backing is really important in Japan to help open those doors for your business. So definitely suggest a chat with TAC before you go much further into Japan. And Austrade, obviously, got to support Austrade given they're supporting today's webinar. But Austrade have a great network in Japan on the ground in Tokyo, Osaka, Sapporo in the north, and Fukuoka in Kyushu. And they've got more information on their website. But again, they can help you tremendously with your business over there. And I have to give a plug for the Queensland Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is your partner with Japan. We've been around since 1987. Trying to promote business investment between Queensland and Japan. We have network events, seminars like today, range of support for Queensland exporters to Japan. Check out our website. If you're in Brisbane this week, don't miss our Born Kai year-end event on Thursday night. So please come along to our event if you can make it. And there it is, the Born Kai, which is on Thursday night. And you can still book online through our website if you can make it. Love to have you there. For information, please send me an email. Details on the screen right now. And now I'd like to hand over to Diana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Diana Georgieva. I'm the Manager of International Trade for the Chamber of Commerce and Industry Queensland, and it is the greatest pleasure for me today to discuss with you the benefits and the certification requirements of the Japan-Australia Economic Partnership Agreement, JAEPA. But before starting our JAEPA discussion, let's take one step back and explain what is an FTA. A free trade agreement, FTA, is an international treaty that reduces the tariffs and non-tariff barriers to trade and investment. In case of goods exports, what we are going to be referring today, there are substantial tariff reductions across a range of products negotiated by the countries, parties of the FTA. Today we'll see how Japan Economic Partnership Agreement, JAEPA, benefits Australian businesses, so as the certification requirements under JAEPA. Japan-Australia Economic Partnership Agreement, JAEPA, entered into force on the 15th of January 2015. JAEPA is the most liberalizing bilateral trade agreement that Japan has ever concluded, providing Australian exporters, importers, investors, and producers a significant advantage over their international competitors. As a result of JAEPA, Australian exporters have greater market access in goods and services, reduced import tariffs in Japan, and a more level playing field in Japan with both local and foreign firms. JAEPA eliminates or reduces barriers to trade in goods between Australia and Japan. The best example on how companies utilize JAEPA I can give you is by using our own Chamber of Commerce and Industry Queensland data from the last financial year, 16-17. Our CCQ export documentation team processes the certificates of origin for over 1,300 Queensland-based companies and for over 130 export markets. When it comes to exports from Australia to Japan, in the last financial year, 86.5% of all export shipments to Japan were under JAEPA. 82.42% of CCQ customers exporting to Japan has exported under JAEPA. And the top 3 exports were beef, fresh produce, food and beverages. What that means is that the majority of our CCQ clients, exporters to Japan, are taking advantage of the reduced tariffs for their product categories. However, exporters to other markets are not fully aware of the benefits of JAEPA, and this is where webinars like today's, in conjunction with JAEPA certificates of origin training from my team, can become very beneficial. Now let's look at the actual FTA in terms of benefits. Once JAEPA will be fully implemented on the 1st of April 2034, more than 98% of Australian merchandise exports to Japan will receive preferential access or enter duty-free. JAEPA is a big win for the agricultural sector, which will greatly benefit across a range of products. As you can see from the screen, Japan eliminates tariffs on entry into force for bulk wine, raw sugar, milk protein concentrates, lactose and casein, wheat and barley for animal feed, some horticulture, including asparagus, macadamia nuts, almonds and mangoes, and some seafood, lobsters, prawns, oysters, crabs, and abalone. Tariffs on most other agricultural exports are being reduced or eliminated within short time frames. I'll give you some examples. Beef. Rapid tariff reduction on the high 38.5% tariff on beef for Australia's largest agricultural export to Japan, providing a significant competitive advantage over our major competitor, the United States. Wine. Elimination of the 15% tariff on bottled wine by 1st of April 2021, and immediate elimination of the tariff on bulk wine. Dairy. Immediate duty-free quotas for Australian cheese, immediate duty-free access for the growing trade in milk protein concentrates, lactose and casein, and new opportunities for ice cream and frozen yogurt. Seafood, immediate elimination of tariffs up to 9.6% on lobsters, prawns, oysters, crabs, and abalone, elimination of tariffs on tuna and Atlantic salmon by 2025. For further information on other agribusiness products covered by the FTA, please refer to the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade website www.dfat.gov.au. The resources, energy, and manufacturing sectors are also greatly benefiting from JAEPA. From entry into force of JAEPA, 99.7% of Australia's exports of resources, energy, and manufacturing products entered Japan duty-free. On full implementation, which is the 1st of April 2034, all of Australia's current resources, energy, and manufactured goods exports will benefit from duty-free entry into Japan. Other resources, energy, and manufacturing outcomes include elimination of tariffs on entry into force for coke and semi-coke of coal, non-crude petroleum oils, aluminium hydroxide, and titanium dioxide, immediate elimination of tariffs on paints, key plastic products, and pearl jewelry. Manufacturing goods outcomes examples, elimination of tariffs and more liberal rules of origin than Japan has ever granted to another country for key apparel, textiles, woolen blankets, and carpets. Immediate elimination of tariffs of 5.2% of pearl jewelry, immediate elimination of tariffs on wood products such as medium density fireboards, particle board, and structured laminized timber, elimination of the 6% tariff on kangaroo leather, immediate elimination of tariffs up to 4% on paints and varnishes. Not all products are covered by the FTA. A small number of products sensitive to Japan are excluded from tariff concessions, including some fur, skin, and leather footwear. Also, under JAEPA, 19 agricultural products are subject to exclusive to Australia trade tariff rate quotas. For example, honey. This means lower tariffs within the quotas and higher rates for quantities outside the quotas. For further information, please refer to the Japan-Australia Economic Partnership Agreement, the FTA formation and fact sheets, and the FTA text, again on www.dfat.gov.au. We have a look at the benefits of the various sectors. Now let's have a look at the processes involved the exporter to be able to take advantages of the preferential tariff treatment under JAEPA. It is a four-step process. The first step of the process is determining what product you are exporting in terms of HS code. To determine how JAEPA treats a particular product, correct identification of the product is required in terms of the Harmonized Statistical Code. The easiest way is just to refer the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade FTA portal, ftaportal.dfat.gov.au. If still unsure of the HS code applicable to your product, advanced ruling from the Japan Customs Authority is an option. The Advanced Classification Ruling System is a system in which the exporters, producers, importers, and their authorized agents can inquire about the tariff classification and duty rate of the goods prior to importation and receive a response from customs. Advanced rulings can cover the HS classification applicable to the goods, the method the relevant customs authority will use to assess the value of the goods, or whether the goods are considered originating for the purpose of JAEPA. This system allows an inquirer to make cost calculations accurately and facilitates sales plans since the duty rate is known in advance. It also expedites the handover of the goods since tariff codes and duty rates are known before import declaration. The advance ruling should be issued prior to export and remain valid for the period determined by Japan Customs. For further information on advance ruling, please refer to Japan Customs website and also the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade website. Once you have determined what products you're exporting in terms of HS code, the next step is to determine how your product is treated under JAEPA in terms of tariffs. Australian exporters can check how their goods are treated under JAEPA by referring to Japan Customs Service Tariff Schedule and also to the FTA portal of Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, ftaportal.dfat.gov.au. You can see on the screen an example on how to search in the FTA portal. It is a fabulous tool not only for JAEPA, but for any other FTA Australia has in place with other countries. Just type in your product or the HS code of your product, select Export from Australia, and then select Japan. What is important for you to know is that under JAEPA, not all products covered are treated equally in terms of when the tariff reductions occurs. You can see on the screen examples of 3 products covered by JAEPA: beef, tuna, and frozen crabs. It is clear that the base rate of 3.5% and 4.8% applicable prior to the implementation of the FTA for tuna and frozen crabs, respectively, has already been eliminated by 2017. However, this is not the case with beef, where progressive tariff elimination is in place on a yearly basis, and will remain at 23.5% from 2028 and beyond. It won't be completely eliminated. When you're counting in which year the FTA is, please keep in mind that from 15th of January 2015 till the end of March is counted as 1 year, and from 1st of April 2015 till 1st of April 2060 is year 2, and so on until 1st of April 2034. The next step from the process on how to take advantage from the reduced tariffs and the JAEPA is defining where is your product produced originating from, and will your product qualify for lower tariffs under JAEPA. We are referring here to the rules of origin. Only goods originating from Australia or Japan or both enjoy preference under JAEPA. Under JAEPA, a good shall be considered as originating in Australia or Japan when wholly obtained or produced entirely in Japan or Australia or both, produced entirely in Japan or Australia or both from materials classified as originating under the rules of origin, or produced in Japan or Australia or both using inputs from the other countries and meets the product-specific rules applicable for that good. For further information, please refer to JAEPA Chapter 3 Rules of Origin and JAEPA Annex 2 Product-Specific Rules, JAEPA Guide to Using JAEPA to Export and Import Goods, all placed on the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade website. And the final part of the process is obtaining Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry JAEPA Certificate of Origin from CCAQ to benefit from the lower tariff rates under JAEPA. But before to go into the process, let's have a look what JAEPA Certificate of Origin is. Under JAEPA, for export from Australia to Japan, JAEPA Certificate of Origin is required. JAEPA provides that goods only attract a tariff preference if the appropriate documentation evidence, which confirms that they meet the rules of origin as per the agreement, accompanies them. One example is the JAEPA Certificate of Origin issued by the Chamber. JAEPA allows for self-certification by the exporter, producer, origin certification documents where CCAQ is not involved in the process. JAEPA Certificate of Origin is documentary evidence that the goods are originating in Australia, Japan, or combination of both in accordance with the provisions of the FTA. Exporters must complete Exporter Registration Form CO4 to register with CCAQ for ACI JAEPA Certificate of Origin. A special JAEPA Certificate of Origin template is available to be completed and signed by the exporter to be processed by CCAQ. It can be completed by the exporter or by the freight company on behalf of the exporter. It is advisable JAEPA Certificate of Origin to be issued prior or at the time of exportation. It is per shipment and shall specify that the goods in the Certificate of Origin are originating goods. In addition, JAEPA Certificates of Origin should be in a printed format, electronic JAEPAs to be printed on A4 white paper in color, with the continuation on its own A4 sheet. It is valid for the particular shipment up to 12 months from the date of issue, and only certificates of origin issued from 15th of January 2015, when the agreement became operational, are accepted by Japan. The data in the certificate of origin must correspond to the supporting documentation, which we require to be presented to the Chamber, and it is very important exporters to maintain all records demonstrating the origin of the goods for 5 years. Some of you may ask whether JAEPA Certificate of Origin is compulsory. Documentary evidence is required under JAEPA to enable the importer to claim preferential tariff treatment. JAEPA Certificate of Origin or the equivalent origin certification document is not required in the case of importation of goods whose customs value does not exceed, in the case of Australia, 1,000 Australian dollars, or in the case of Japan, 100,000 yen. JAEPA Certificate of Origin is also not required where the treaty waives the requirement for documentary evidence of origin. Please check Chapter 3 of the treaty for more details. The information is on the Department of Foreign Affairs website. JAEPA Certificate of Origin will also not apply for shipments that are already cleared Japan Customs prior to 15th of January 2015, and exporters may choose not to use JAEPA Certificate of Origin if the current tariff for their products is already zero or their product is not covered by JAEPA. In this case, a non-preferential certificate of origin can be used and organized by my team. You can see now on the screen what the JAEPA certificate of origin templates look like and the relevant fields to be completed by the export or the freight company on behalf of the exporter. I have made some comments for you across each section. As a start, please obtain your shipping document, as the information on JAEPA certificate of origin should correspond to the rest of the documentation and is required to be able to complete the form. When completing the JAEPA certificate of origin template, please pay extra attention on selecting the correct applicable preference criterion for your product. Under JAEPA, the Australian origin criterion, the applicable Australian origin criterion for Australian exports can be wholly obtained, PE, PSR, or other, where wholly obtained applies for goods which are wholly obtained in Australia. I'll give you an example: live animals, agricultural products, minerals originating from Australia. PE applies for goods produced entirely in Australia from originating materials. For example, apple juice produced from Australian grown apples, and the rest of the materials are originating from Australia as well. PSR applies for goods that satisfy all applicable requirements of the product-specific rules as a result of processes performed entirely in one or both parties, Australia or Japan, by one or more producers, and the last process of production of the goods was performed in the exporting party, in our case is Australia. I'll give you an example. Gold jewelry. When imported pure gold from a country not signatory of JAEPA has been transformed into a gold jewelry in the territory of Australia, then the final product can be claimed as originating in Australia. This is another rule: exported to select other when specification of any other applicable origin criterion requirements are not applicable. For further information on origin criterion can be found in JAEPA Chapter 3 Rules of Origin, and the product-specific rules are in Annex 2 Product-Specific Rules of Origin. You can also find all this material on the Department of Foreign Affairs website. Let's keep this slide as it is self-explanatory. Now, please also pay extra attention on box 13. Box 13, the exporter must tick any of those 4 boxes if applicable, subject to non-party invoice, de minimis issued retrospectively, all the rule of accumulation if it's applicable. So please read the definitions if you're on time, and if you have any questions, please give us a call or just read a little bit more information on the Department of Foreign Affairs website. Useful tips: always use the origin criterion as per JAEPA preference criteria, JAEPA Annex 3, or the FTA portal, ftaportal.dfat.gov.au. To avoid rejection at destination, invest in a good color printer to print your electronic JAEPAs, because the exporter should print the documents and the original should be forwarded to the importer. And if still not sure, just ask us. You can save yourself a lot of time and money. Our main email is exportdocs@ccq.com.au. Just please, any questions, contact us and we will respond within the same day. And now I'll go back to how you can obtain JAEPA certificate of origin from us. Please contact our office to obtain the relevant forms. Alternatively, you can download them from our website. Just go to www.ccq.com.au, click on International Trade, Export Documentation, and the forms are there under the relevant free trade agreement. In this case will be JAEPA. Register with us for JAEPA certificates of origin by completing the CO4 registration form and email back to my team at exportdocs@ccq.com.au. Once you have your shipping documents, please complete the certificate of origin for JAEPA and also email to exportdocs@ccq.com.au. Alternatively, you can utilize our electronic systems eCertify and CertConnect. Please contact us to provide you more information on this. And finally, forward a hard copy of the JAEPA certificate of origin to your importer, so the importer is able to clear the goods through customs and to be able to be entitled to the reduced tariff rates under the agreement. And now I'm going to the last page of the last slide of our presentation today. JAEPA help is available. I have included a number of entities that can help you with various aspects of your export business to Japan: Department of Foreign Affairs, Austrade, Trade Investment Queensland, Queensland Japan Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and EFIC, Export Finance Insurance Corporation, and of course ourselves, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry Queensland. And this is the presentations for the day. Now I'll get back to Amanda to continue with the question and answer sessions where you can ask Anthony and myself questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Diana and Anthony. Yeah, we will take some questions now. If you haven't sent your question through, please do so now using the chat box that appears on your screen. Now, we've had a couple come through already. First one I think will be for you, Diana. Can the FTA reduce my costs?
You still have to pay the costs associated with your shipment. However, the tariff eliminations or reductions of certain products negotiated in the FTA, this is where your cost savings will come from in your existing or your new export business, and also from your increased production due to the new export contracts.
Excellent, thank you. This one for you, Anthony. How do I learn more about the Japanese market?
Excellent question. I guess there's a whole bunch of research you can do before you even leave your office or your desk. First of all, we've got some excellent resources online. You can check the Trade Investment Queensland website in relation to Japan. You can check the Austrade website in relation to Japan as well. You can check the DFAT website, read JAEPA. You can check JETRO website as well. All these contacts which we've given out today. There are also obviously newspapers, other publications which give you more up-to-date information on Japan's economy, etc. Publications like the Japan Times newspaper, which is English language. So I guess other ones like Bloomberg, etc. You can find a bunch of data on Japan. If you really want to drill down, obviously you may have to go and seek help elsewhere. Obviously Japan has its own unique language, which if you're not familiar with Japanese language, you may need assistance with. If you're after like specific data on your sector or business, you may need to get someone who can read that Japanese to actually help you. This is where you can tap into, I guess, TIQ or Austrade or QGCCI or even JETRO, etc., to give you that Japanese assistance, because as you know, you may have specific questions which won't be answered with a general website, and you may need to get someone to help you with. But there are consultants around who can actually help you get those answers you need to grow your business in Japan.
Thanks, Anthony. Diana, are my goods covered by JAEPA if they are in a third country on the way to Japan?
That is a very interesting question. In the case of transshipment, the answer will be yes. What that means is you have your goods going from one plane to another, on one ship to another, for the purpose of transshipment on the way to Japan. As long as there is no changes to the goods, and it just clearly no changes to any of the cargo which is going to Japan, there wouldn't be any questions about the origin of the goods. However, if you decide, let's say, to use an importer from another country which is not Japan, and this importer decides to put the goods in a bonded warehouse and then decides to take the goods in another time to Japan, there will be issues with the origin of the goods, because the goods cannot leave customs control when there are third parties involved. So hope that explains well your question. But if you have any other concerns in relation to this question, please contact me after the webinar.
Okay, I'll leave this question open to both of you. We've got one come through. In terms of building trusting business relationships between Japan and Australian companies, how would you rate our cross-cultural business competency when dealing with Japanese companies? So, for instance, being aware of cultural differences in negotiation styles, decision-making timeframes, etc. Did you want to take that one, Anthony?
Okay, well, that's a good question. Well, as I've just mentioned earlier on, Japan does have its own unique language, culture, etc., which can, from a Western viewpoint, appear like a barrier to your business. However, I think in recent years, with a lot of Australians studying Japanese, in fact, Queensland is now the leading state in Japanese language study. A lot of Australians now can speak the language. There's also obviously a Japanese community in Australia as well. I think there's something like 25,000 in Queensland. So there's locals here as well you can talk to. There are interpreters around. There are people who can help with cross-cultural awareness to help you make those connections. There's basic things like having enough business cards when you go to a meeting with Japanese people. Things like whether you bow your head or shake hands. Things like where you sit in the meeting room and who sits at the head of the table and what you say when you arrive and when you leave and these kind of things. And I guess your dress in Japan, Japanese tend to be more formally dressed in business situations. So suit and tie we recommended for blokes. Don't turn up in your t-shirt and shorts like you might do in I don't know, in the regions, or if you're having a casual day. So formal dress I'd recommend as a start. Although you'd be pleased to hear that in recent times Japan has adopted the cool biz in summer, in which the politicians and business people actually have dropped the necktie in summer, but they're still wearing the jacket. So, you know, you win on one side, you lose on the other one. So basically formal gear. But in terms of culture, there's a whole bunch of things. You can read books, you can look at websites. If you talk to Austrade or TIQ in Tokyo, they'll give you probably the basic things. But again, from my viewpoint, and I've lived over there for 6 years, and I've obviously worked for Japan a number of years, there's things like just personal things like personal friendships and connections. And it's the same with any business, whether you're in Australia or overseas. It's personal connection. So going over and meeting someone, looking in the face, having that face-to-face contact makes a big difference. Email exchanges and telephone are well and good, and I guess that's what you're probably doing initially. But if you really want to get things from, you know, initial exploratory stage through to getting a contract signed, well, that's going to take face-to-face meeting. Now, Japanese are known for having protracted negotiations, and yes means no, no means yes, etc. And so, again, having someone there maybe at the meeting who can read the body language, who understands why the guy at the back of the room is asleep in your meeting. You may be thinking, why is he asleep? Why is he ignoring me? But actually, he may be the senior guy in the room. He's letting the juniors take charge of the talks. But that doesn't mean he's ignoring you. That just means that he's letting the junior guys take charge. He will get involved when he's required. So don't take that as him being rude. Things like that, it's a personal level. Same in any business deal. You want personal connections in any culture. They really make the difference, which is obviously why I suggest going to Japan at some point if you are going to get serious about it. But I think Australians have improved in recent years. We've gone beyond our reliance on UK Western-speaking markets. We're now, obviously, Asia is now our biggest #1 trade partner. You know, so that's East Asian markets, China, Japan, US obviously still massive, New Zealand, etc. But we are getting more engaged with Asia, and that's really improving our opportunities in recent years with Asia and Japan.
Excellent. Is there a list or like any resources where people can find out who are currently exporting so other companies can piggyback on common distribution channels?
Yes, I can answer this question. We can help. We have a lot of customers which are exporting to Japan. We can help. Also, Austrade can help. They have a database on their website, which you can find out. A lot of exporters are registered in this database. Trade Investment Queensland also can help. So it's just a matter to contact us, and we can organize this for you from our end and with our strategic partners. And of course, Anthony can help with the Queensland Japan Chamber of Commerce. Yes. Hope that answered my question.
And Anthony, just going on about all the knowledge you were just passing on earlier about how the Japanese do business, where can people go to learn more about the Japanese market itself?
Yeah, well, obviously there's a bunch of things you can do. I think, as I mentioned earlier, that you've got current information on sites like the Nikkei Asian Review, I think it's called now, that's like Japan's financial newspaper where you can get all that information from. You can go on to Japan Times, which is a English language publication in Japan, or Japan News. You can check out Bloomberg, etc., for the recent economic business data. You can go to obviously TIQ, DFAT, JETRO, Austrade sites. There's a whole bunch of sites where you can get information on Japan. I think obviously if you want to drill down into your sector or business, you may need someone to help you dig up the research. But there's a bunch of information these days thanks to the internet. In the old days, it was basically getting your encyclopedia out, whatever it was, and maybe making a lot of phone calls to Japan. But these days we have all that information at our fingertips. You can be on the beach and doing your research. So it's great, the modern revolution, but of course, with the modern revolution, you've got a lot of information out there, and I guess may not always be accurate or relevant. So that's where it's great to have someone actually can then drill down the data and actually distill the important stuff for you. And that's where people like the trade bodies, the Chamber of Commerce, your consultants, etc., can help you really work out, okay, is that rule changed? Why has it changed? What's the background to it changing? Does it benefit my business? Does it give me an opportunity, or does it provide a barrier? So things like that, really, you probably need some assistance with. But general information, there's a whole ton of stuff out there, and you can spend days just doing your research before you even leave your office.
Excellent. Diana, how can I obtain a JAEPA certificate of origin if the goods have already left to Japan?
That shouldn't be an issue at all. The point is, contact us as soon as possible. We need a copy of the shipping documents, and we can organize a certificate of origin for you. The very important bit is you have to find a way the original document to be delivered to your importer or the freight company of the importer to be able to clear the goods through customs. So when the goods actually reach Japanese port or airport, they should have the original document to clear the goods through customs.
Okay, and just a final question, Anthony, what do you see as opportunities for Queensland businesses in Japan?
Thank you. Excellent question. So, as I mentioned earlier, there's a whole bunch of opportunities. I guess it really depends on where your business is, what sector you're in. Now, as a lot of people familiar with Japanese investment and trade with Australia know, basically Japan has been here for a long time. In Australia, I think since the 50s and 60s, we signed the original trade pact back in the 50s. So I think we celebrated the 50th anniversary this year of that original commerce agreement signed in 57. What it was, or 67. So basically, that was originally investing in things like resources, so coal and gas, beef, property, etc. So those things have really kicked along. Now, in terms of Japanese market, obviously, like other Asian economies, they've gone from that stage of developing from being a less developed country into industrialized economy, and now Japan is obviously a first world economy. So as they've industrialized, their demand for our goods has changed. Now, obviously, you've gone from that phase where we had massive exports, and we're still doing massive exports to Japan of things like resources, coal and gas, beef, etc., seafood, all those traditional areas. But now we're into the 21st century, and it's getting more sophisticated. So things like financial services are now selling, I guess, financial products to Japanese retirees who need to get a return on their savings. And I know there's a bunch of Australian fund managers going to Japan to obviously tap into that big market for retiree savings. Things like aged care. Aged care, again, the Japanese need aged care because the population's aging. All those retirees are looking for things like specialised holidays. They're drinking more wine. Japanese women are drinking more wine in particular. So this is where companies like Surmei Wines in Queensland are getting a benefit because they're selling a lot more wine over there. There's Australian-themed restaurants being opened up in Japan as well. So they're tapping into this food and wine boom. The Japanese love their food, and there's more Michelin-star restaurants in Tokyo than anywhere else in the world. So forget London, Paris, just go to Tokyo for your food. And Australia, obviously being a major food exporter, is benefiting from that because we're selling them more of our top-end food, top-end wine, and the Japanese really love that kind of stuff. So there's things like food, obviously, like TIQ mentioned, there's things like renewables, there's education, there's financial services, and moving forward, there's things like robotics, there's high-tech stuff like driverless cars, etc. There's a whole bunch of different sectors which are benefiting as Japan matures. The retirees, that grey market is seen as a big sector for growth. Obviously, these people have got a lot of wealth they've accumulated from their lifetime of work. So all those boomers in Japan who are retiring or about to retire, they've got lots of money to spend on things like trips overseas, etc. They're spending money on their grandkids. So the pet market is booming. I know we've had inquiry before about from a pet exporter to Japan. I think there's more pets now in Japan, more dogs and cats than there are kids, which is a bit sad if you like your kids. But I think if you are selling pet food, well, there's a massive market for you, because you walk down Ginza in Tokyo and you see the Japanese walking their little dogs along, and they're all fully kitted out in all the gear, and you just think, geez, how much money went into that little dog? But well, there he is. And if you're selling pet food or pet products to Japan, they've got cafes, they've got the whole works. So a massive market over there for things like pets and aged care and so on. So really, it depends on your sector. But as I've said today, there's a whole bunch of opportunities. Doesn't matter what you're in. I guess the other benefits, which we haven't really talked about today, things like Japan, obviously having an advanced legal system, so they respect your IP. So I know it's a big issue in some markets overseas about IP and copyrights being infringed and trademarks being ripped off, etc. Well, Japan, it's not really an issue. They've got a well-established rule of law over there. They respect IP. They respect copyright. They respect contracts. So if you sign a contract with Japan, you know you get your money. And this is going to be a big issue. I know with some markets where you're kind of crossing your fingers that the other guy's going to pay you. So Japan is great in terms of respect for IP, contracts, legal rights, Western style legal system. So all these things make it easy to do business with Japan. Obviously, English language is not spoken as well as some markets like Singapore, for example. But again, you have people to assist you with that. You have intermediaries to assist you with all those things. And again, if you're going to Japan, it's from Queensland right now. It's a 1 hour time difference. So that compares to 2 hours with China, whatever. So 1 hour time difference from Queensland is pretty good. They're 1 hour behind us. If you get on a plane from Brisbane to Tokyo, it's about a 9 hour flight. You arrive there, you leave Brisbane Airport around 10 o'clock in the morning, you arrive at Narita Airport around 6 p.m. at night. So that's not a bad trip, 8 or 9 hours in a plane. It's not expensive these days to fly there, thanks to things like Jetstar and Qantas. And obviously, 1 hour time difference, you can get inexpensive hotels over there, business hotels, maybe $100 a night, depending where you are. So again, you're not going to spend a huge amount of money going there and staying and doing your market research on the ground there, and obviously tapping into our networks over there with our chamber and our friends with TIQ, etc. So all these areas, I could talk all day, but I probably shouldn't.
Right, excellent. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, that is all the time we have today. I'm sorry. Thank you very much to Anthony and Diana for presenting today. I also wanted to let everyone know we will be sending out an email later today. It will have the slides and a copy of the recording, but most importantly, it's going to have a link to a short survey by Austrade. This is a requirement from them. They are supporting us, so we'd really love to get the feedback to them. It's really short, will take maximum 2 minutes of your time, so keep an eye out for that later this afternoon, and we'll also send Diana's and Anthony's contact details if you have any further questions. So thank you to you both, and thank you for everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to having you again in the future. Thank you.